Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to go ahead and get started. We understand that people will kind of start to trickle in as they connect. My name is Sophie. I'm a staff member at Cancer Pathways here in Seattle, Washington, and I'm going to go ahead and get us started with some introductions. First of all, I just want to offer some technical support. So we will have all participants have the option to connect over audio using their speakers or your telephone. We do encourage all participants except the host to be muted. And then if you have any questions, we please encourage those questions to be entered in the chat box. That if you can click the chat, that'll come up on the right side of your screen. Sophie, will be monitoring that, and we'll have plenty of time at the end of the presentation to go over all of those questions and answers. As well as if you have any technical needs throughout the entire presentation, audio goes out, whatever, my email is sophie@cancerpathways.org. I'll be monitoring that as well. So please reach out if you have any technical difficulties. Also, I encourage you to pin this video if you're available to pin this presentation. That'll make it so if any other noises come up, if any other introductions come up, that PowerPoint will still remain on your screen. So thank you for being here. Again, we're going to have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. So as we're going through the presentations, please, we encourage you to type those questions into that chat box. We will be monitoring that and have time at the end of the presentation to go through all of those. We encourage and we sincerely value your feedback for this webinar. We so appreciate you being here and being together right now. We will have a brief survey at the end of the webinar that will be the certification for your completion. You'll be emailed the link to the survey immediately following the webinar. So please bear with us through the entire thing. We'll do our questions and answers. After the webinar, we'll send you a short email with a very brief survey. So I'd just like to give the mic to Allison. We'll do some introductions.
Hey everyone, I'm Allison Taylor and I'm with the South Carolina Cancer Alliance, and I'm very excited to be here today co-hosting this webinar with Cancer Pathways. And I just want to thank Sophie and Jana for doing amazing work putting this together. I think everyone's going to really enjoy this. And so thank you, ladies. And everybody, our host really of the webinar today is Jana Mastrogiovanni.
Hello, thank you, Allison, and thank you, Sophie. They've both been very helpful in organizing and putting this together, and we're all very excited to share more about the Cancer Happens program. So briefly, my name is Jana Mastrogiovanni. I've been with Cancer Pathways since about 2013, so almost 7, 8 years. I am a licensed therapist, so I started out facilitating groups and had the privilege of working with patients and families that have been impacted by cancer. I, however, quickly latched on to this teen program, the Cancer Happens Teen Education. I just saw how impactful it was, and I've always loved working with teenagers and young adults. Some of you may know a little bit about our teen program. This might be the first time you've heard about it. So just in general, it is an education and cancer prevention program. It is geared towards teenagers, adolescents. Our curriculum focuses mostly on middle school and high school students. It is school-based. However, we have definitely taken this information into other community forums and organizations. You know, some examples like the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. So the information in itself is geared towards teenagers and adolescents and can be applied in different formats. Today, we'll mostly talk about school. I will definitely encourage you guys to share some information in the chat box. I think we mentioned this is being recorded, but the chat box is not being recorded. So if you're comfortable, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box, maybe what school or organization you're with, and what state, because I think we have some pretty good representation today in multiple states. So what we're hoping that you all learned today. A little bit more about our Cancer Happens program, a lot more about the actual content that is included in our teen program, also how to implement it with your students. I think it's a lot of information, and there are a lot of different ways that you can implement this in your classroom or even remotely. I know a lot of things have changed recently, and we're trying to anticipate what the fall will look like. So we want to be as flexible as possible for all schools to still be able to use our program. And then we also want to help you guys if your school's ever impacted by cancer. If you ever have a student, a teacher, somebody in the school community that's dealing with a cancer diagnosis, we know, you may already know, you may have already seen that it can potentially impact the whole school, the entire community. So we'd love to be supportive of that, kind of help you guide you through that. We have created a guide, and I'll show you more information on that too. So first, I just wanted to start out with one of our videos. This will show you a little more about our program. And again, bear with me. I've done this presentation 100 times in person, but never virtually. So let me share my screen and I'll share this video with you all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you guys see this video? Okay, perfect. We really like that video. I almost showed it to you again. Okay, let me pull back up my PowerPoint. I'm curious, I can't really discuss it with you all right now, but if any of those statistics are surprising to you all, I know the vaping one always still surprises me. Over 53 million teenagers are already using vape products. Let me share my screen back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Here we are. All right. So I think, I mentioned a little bit during introductions. We originally, we're based in Seattle, Washington. In 2016, so about 3 years ago, we did our first expansion of our teen education program into South Carolina and Georgia. To date, we haven't finalized our new numbers this current school year, but we've seen over 100,000 students. We've definitely seen how impactful it is and how important the information is no matter where you're located. And I would also say we've had great success and demand from this program in new states, and especially since COVID-19, we've actually had a lot of inquiries from others out of state as well. So we expect to see more of that in the next school year. This just shows a little bit about our teacher feedback. This was from an end of the year teacher survey we did last year. Just kind of wanted to gauge how much students are learning about cancer in the classroom. And you can kind of see, and you probably already know, a lot of states are different and requirements are different. It seems like it's definitely being touched on. A lot of schools are only really kind of dependent on the Cancer Happens program. And I think a lot of schools supplement it, once we come into the classroom. Another question we were curious about is whether or not teachers felt that this cancer information and risk reduction program should be required in health education curriculum. And we actually see almost 93% of teachers that, had received our program, felt that it was important enough to include in health education. And I think that says a lot, because I know teachers have a lot on their plate and they have a lot of requirements already. So to say that they felt like this should be also required, I think was kind of very impactful. We also do student surveys. I think one of the biggest statistics that we use with our students are how many of them report being impacted by cancer. We've been collecting that information probably since the beginning in 2005, and that number unfortunately continues to go up. Right now we're kind of hovering around 75% of students are reporting that they know or have known somebody with cancer. And I think that's huge. That's important to know. Not only are we going to educate them about cancer, but understand that, they're already being impacted. They already know people. It's important for them to understand what cancer is and what it's not. And we also help try to give them the tools and tips on how to support people that are impacted by cancer. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. Another opportunity, this is generally where I would ask the audience to raise their hand if they know anybody or have known anybody with cancer. So again, if you want to share that in the chat box, we'd really appreciate it. Okay, next slide. This is just an overview of the content that is covered during our course. We focus a lot on what cancer is, what it's not. You would actually be surprised. One of my favorite questions to ask the students is if they believe that cancer is contagious, and there actually still is a large percentage of students that are fearful that they might get it from their peers or family members. So just trying to increase their basic understanding of what cancer is. We give them a lot of key terms. We talk a lot about what types of cancers teens are more likely to get. And then we have a heavy focus on cancer prevention and risk reduction. And this is where you might notice that it aligns very well with health education common core topics. For example, tobacco products. That is something obviously that is already being required in health education classes. We have a heavy focus on e-cigs and vaping right now. That is definitely our most requested topic by schools and teachers. We actually are developing a new course right now that should be ready in the fall, specifically on vaping in teenagers. So we're really excited about that. Let's see, we also talk about lifestyle choices, such as the nutrition, physical activity. This one is becoming increasingly more important. As of right now, tobacco still leads the #1 most preventable cause of cancer, but obesity is second and continues to kind of rise the chart. Sun safety, skin cancer, very important with this age group. It is the second most common type of cancer with teenagers, adolescents, young adults. I believe some states, not all states, require sun safety education already. I believe South Carolina is one of those. So we definitely have a nice section on that. We talk about the HPV vaccination and the human papillomavirus itself, how students are infected, what types of cancers that infection could lead to, and different ways that they could prevent. We try to focus very heavily on the HPV vaccination and the virus itself as cancer prevention. We're not a sex ed course. However, we do share with them how they can get that virus. Self-exams, we touch on testicular cancer that is common in younger males, breast cancer, or breast exams and skin checks, which I'll show you some more of that information. And then we touch on genetics and family history, because that's also another cancer risk factor. So these are basically the two main options that you could implement our program with your students or with the teenagers that you're working with. The first one is our in-person. This is how this whole program started. I believe it was a school in Seattle. The teacher asked us just kind of come talk to her classroom informally in 2005. And we have definitely evolved into a much larger, much more comprehensive program since then. In-person presentation would include someone from Cancer Pathways, a trained health educator, come in as a guest speaker and talk to the class. And we are pretty flexible in what that looks like, depending on classroom needs and school needs. Typically, the presentation fits into a class, a 50-minute class. This is offered in person. This one is somewhat limited. It just kind of depends on where our health educators are located. However, any school that participates, we give all teachers and students access to our online library and database, so they can use all of our materials to kind of supplement that guest speaker presentation. I think probably 5 years ago, we wanted to expand and we wanted to be more available to more students and teens. That's when we created our online platform. So that's our second option. This is where, and we'll actually walk through that platform shortly, but teachers, students are giving access accounts to the online platform. This includes multiple courses that are kind of narrated. It's pretty easy, push play button and sit back and watch and learn. This one option, one of the positives, it is very flexible. I had a teacher tell me yesterday she's seen some of her students turn in homework and assignments at like 10 o'clock at night now. So, they could watch this video whenever it works for their schedule and at their own pace. You can also track student progress. When we create these students' accounts, we keep everything anonymous. We don't get any of their personal information. It's very generic name, student 1, student 2, student 3. So there is the possibility that you could track students' progress and completion of the course, and they're all prompted to take a post-survey at the end. So you're also able to see any knowledge learned at the end of the course. And again, this is where you would access all of our online materials, additional lesson plans, activities, videos, those kind of things. And this option, of course, is available to any teacher, any school. There are no limits. And that's kind of what we were hoping for. Let's see, student quote at the bottom. I feel really informed and I learned things that seem little, like wearing sunscreen and eating right can make a difference, which I think is awesome. There are little things that really can make a difference, a lifelong difference for them. As you know, and as you have probably been doing yourself, we have responded to the current COVID-19, and we are all trying to figure out what things are going to look like in the fall. Some of our planning has included the development of a new module, the e-cigs and vaping module for teens. Again, that'll be available next school year. It'll be a shorter course. I have heard some feedback from teachers and students that there's screen fatigue. I don't know if you guys have heard that yet from any of your students. I know I probably have also experienced that. So this is a shorter course and it focuses specifically on vaping. We've also been busy creating a ton of new activities that teachers and students can use online. And then we're also playing with the idea of offering a live webinar session with students. It's probably very unlikely that we will be going into the classrooms. I don't know what kind of limitations there are for guest speakers, but we don't anticipate it. I mean, we will if it's available, but if not, we'd like to offer the possibility of, short little live discussions with your students if they do watch our e-learning course and they want to have kind of a Q&A with one of our trained health educators or have us kind of facilitate a discussion with them. We'd love to be able to offer your schools that as well. Okay. Again, this is just some feedback from our teachers. Majority of our teachers have felt the curriculum is effective in educating students about cancer and risk factors. I believe I wrote down another stat, over 95% of our schools ask us to return or use our program the following year. So we have a really high retention rate and positive response from teachers overall. A few key items, we say evidence-based. We do provide a pre and post survey for all of our students that participate in the program. I mean, one that is to offer us feedback on what they're learning, how they're learning, what else they would like to learn. But as far as what the percentage of knowledge increase that has shown thus far, we don't have all of our student surveys in yet from this current school year. I think we have about 8,500. Based on those, the pre-surveys, the percentage of correct answers, let's see, was at 69%. And then on our post surveys so far, percentage of questions that were answered correctly is 94%. So that's what, a 25% increase in knowledge. So we feel really good about that. And then also mention that we are aligned with national health education standards. We have multiple teachers from multiple backgrounds, different subjects and disciplines use our program. We've had science teachers, health science, family consumer science, CTE teachers, all use our program, all find it beneficial. I mean, personally, I think, our information would be relevant to any teenager. However, you do see it most often used in health classes, and I think that's because the curriculum aligns with those educational standards better than some other classes. And you'll see in our teacher resource database online, you'll see certain lesson plans and they will align specifically with those health standards. We are definitely interactive and engaging, which we know is very important with teenagers. Both presentations, we have videos, we have graphics, images, a lot of thought-provoking questions to try to keep them engaged throughout the presentation. Another student quote, I know I cannot be afraid to talk about cancer. I love that they mentioned that. Again, we're not just trying to give them facts and information about cancer. We really want to help them feel comfortable just talking about this subject, period. So I love that they mentioned that. All right, this is one of our health educators. This is just a picture of our in-person presentation. This is one of my favorite quotes. This was from a teacher in South Carolina this most recent school year. She said, "Thank you so much for presenting. The kids are actually still talking about what they learned." And she also had several teachers mention that the kids were discussing this topic in their classes as well, which I thought was amazing that they're still talking about it after we left. So hopefully planting seeds and making a difference. And then this is just a couple of our actual slides that you'll see in our presentations. Just wanted to give you a preview of that. The top one is in regards to e-cigarettes, vaping. Again, we have a lot of discussion with this. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about with the teenagers when I'm in the classroom. I really encourage, teachers to have a discussion, with their students, not necessarily just give them information and facts and, preach and lecture at them. I like to open the conversation up with, what do you know? And what have you heard about vaping and e-cigarettes? You'd be surprised. A lot of them still think it's water vapor. This picture right here is just kind of showing what's all included, in that aerosol. So that's one slide from e-cigs. If you look on the bottom left, you can see our skin check. I think this is also a really nice piece to our presentation. We teach all the students how to do their own skin check. And this, I don't think many students have ever seen this before we came into their classroom. And this is applicable to everyone, even teachers and adults. They call it the ABCDEs of detecting melanoma, which is the more dangerous kind of skin cancer, the one that has the potential to spread to other parts of the body, and the one that is second most common with teenagers and young adults. I always tell them that your skin better than anybody else. You're going to be the one that probably notices if something's changing, if something's new, if something's different. So these are a few tips on what they can look for, and make sure that they're sharing that with, a parent, a school nurse, or if they have a doctor, to make sure they share that with them. And then let's see, on the bottom right is an example of an HPV slide. I like to show this slide to all the students. It shows the different types of cancers that this infection can lead to. And if you look closely, you'll probably notice that they're all mostly in the genital region, which usually gets the attention of the teenagers. A lot of time people mistake that it's just cervical cancer that's caused by the HPV, but it's actually over 6 different types of cancers that people can get from the virus. So let's see. Next, I think I was going to take everybody to our online platform and show you what that looks like and how easy it is to log in. Some of you may already have a login to our online platform. If you don't, you can use this temporary preview account that we have. Teacher is the username, password is cancer. And you can just kind of watch my screen because I'm going to log in as well. If you were interested in our program using the online platform, basically you can email myself, you can email our info account, or you can register for it online, and we would start that process with you. We typically give all teachers access to our courses and all the teacher materials, and then we would probably find out more from you of how you plan on using it with your students. We have learned a lot over the years, and there's actually multiple ways to use this with your students. We've seen some teachers just open up our online course and show it in their classroom. That's definitely one way to do it, and only use a teacher account. We've seen more recently where we have given just one classroom account. All the students log into the same account, and it makes it a little bit easier for the teachers to distribute that information. It's just one account versus individual accounts. And that's kind of the third option, is creating individual accounts for every single student. And there's benefits to that as well. You're able to track each student. You're able to track whether or not they complete the course. So it's really, again, it's flexible and it's up to teachers and what is most helpful and going to be the most effective with your students. So let me test my screen sharing again. I'm going to share my browser with you. So if you're going to our online platform, you would type in cet.cancerpathways.org. You can also get to that through our website as well. There's a direct link. Okay, so can you guys see that? Lovely. Okay, so this is kind of the front page of our online platform. I will log in with that account. It's just teacher, password is cancer. And then, let me try that again. There we go. And that's the same page that your students will go to. They will have their own login and password. You can change passwords at any time. So you would come down to My Courses. Our main course right here is Cancer Happens 2019-2020. We are currently updating all our materials for next school year. So next school year, you'll see 2020-2021, but this will remain through the summer. And then we'll also have that vaping course will be an option. And then here is access to all of our teacher materials, which I'll show you that first, and then I'll take you into our course. This is where you would come if you want any additional lessons, if you want any additional handouts, activities. They're mostly all PDFs, so they're easy to print, and they're in kind of by topic. You know, if you want more on communication and support, if you want more on e-cigarettes, we have more on HPV, sun safety. Let's see, these are different lesson plans, and again, they are by topic. You can click on those and download those as well, which I think I'm going to show you the Cancer Jeopardy in a minute because that's one of my favorites. And then I also like, there are different assessment options. Some teachers prefer to kind of gauge and track what their students are learning more in depth than our pre and post. So there are different options in there that you can kind of assess your students with. We have images and infographics you can print out. There's more student opportunities to stay engaged with us. The video library is great. You know, we don't have enough time to show all these videos during our presentation. So if you wanted to follow up, or if you wanted to kind of give the students a taste of the presentation beforehand, we've vetted all these different videos. The first one is for specific risk factors, you know, more on e-cigs, more on nutrition, more on physical activity, HPV. And then this one, Teens with Cancer, is a wonderful resource because a lot of times we do hear from teens that they want to know more about teens that have actually been impacted by cancer. So this is a list of videos that we've gone through that we feel show a very good representation, accurate representation of teens that have been impacted by cancer. And that could be personally, or that could be by a family member. So, you know, I'll let you guys, you know, take your time afterwards, go through all that, see all the different resources. Of course, we do a teacher survey. We love feedback from you all. And then the bottom one, the Cancer in the School Community, that is our PDF. That's our guide for schools to use if their school has been impacted by cancer. So let me take you into the actual course. So you would just click on this. Then this gives an explanation of the course, and then you'll click here. And then you will enter the course, which I might have to share a new screen.
What is cancer? How can you get it?
Let's see. Can you guys see that screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So this again is our main Cancer Happens course. You can really just come in and push play and listen to the audio, and this mirrors our in-person presentation. Some teachers I've heard like the option of having this toolbar on the left-hand side. For instance, maybe you're on your tobacco unit and you just want to come and share our slides on tobacco. It's very easy to do that. But otherwise, you know, you would send your students in, they would push play, and then they would listen. And I'll show you guys a couple.
You might be thinking, I'm still young. Why do I need to think about this? Do teens even get cancer? Cancer is rare in teens, but you should be aware of what types of cancers affect teens. For example, testicular cancer tends to affect younger men rather than older men. Breast cancer, however, usually affects adult women. Teen girls are not likely to get this form of cancer. There are other types of cancer that are more likely to occur in teens. The most common type of cancer diagnosed under the age of 18 is leukemia, a cancer in the blood and bone marrow.
Okay, so that's just an example, you know, and they would click next and it would go to the next page.
Doctors do not always know what causes cancer.
So this, going through this course typically takes about 35 to 40 minutes. And there's also videos embedded in this course and some questions. And then once they get to the end,
thank you for taking the time to learn about cancer education for teens. Please complete the post test to receive.
You'll see that they'll be prompted to take the post survey. So we definitely encourage teachers to encourage that their students complete that survey. It gives us a lot of valuable information. It's really the only way we're able to track users of this program as well. So let's see. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint, and if you guys have any questions about this module, I'll answer those at the end, but definitely go ahead and put them in the chat box. So let's see if I can get back to our PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. You know, tons of extension activities. You know, we could probably present to your class for an entire week. We feel like there's so much information we want to share, but again, we know that teachers have a limited amount of time. So if teachers just want to use that presentation, that course one time, that's great. If teachers want to build on that or extend on that, we have all these additional resources available. So it's up to teachers, it's up to schools. We see a lot of variety in how schools and teachers implement our program. And again, we want to be as flexible as possible and easy to use as possible. This is one of our activities, and we could try to play this. I don't know how it works virtually. Maybe in the chat box, we could test your knowledge. We'll go middle of the road, 300. Let's see, true or false questions to you all. Most cancers are due to inherited genes. Do you guys think that is true or false? Feel free to put your answer in the chat box. I'll give you guys a few seconds. This is one of our questions for the students as well on the pre and post survey. Okay, so the answer is actually false. Most cancers are not due to inherited genes. Only about 5 to 10% of cancers are actually due to genetics. So we definitely talk to the students the importance of family history, even though it's a small percentage that contribute to a cancer diagnosis. It's still really important to know if they're able to find out. We encourage them to find out about their close family members, not necessarily, their fifth or sixth cousin, their parents, their siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, and also take note if there is the same type of cancer that has happened to multiple people in their family. Take note of that. And then part B, take that information to your doctors or your healthcare providers. I think one contributing factor to lowering cancer incident rates is the ability that doctors have to detect cancer sooner, or possibly even detect changes before it turns into cancer. So this is one way that students can kind of advocate for themselves and hopefully lower their own personal risk. But you'll find all these answers and the rest of that game in our online platform. These are just some results from our students survey. 99% of students reported learning at least one new thing about cancer. And then at the bottom portion, we really try to track to the best of our ability any actual behavior change that students are making after our presentation. One of the questions on the post survey is what kind of changes do they plan to make or intend to make? One of the most common answers is the self-exams. These are results from last school year. As of right now, self-exams is still, I think, in the lead this school year as well. So that's going to include testicular exams, breast checks, and skin checks for that age group. And then healthy food choices, exercise are often pretty common responses too. I don't put a lot of stock into the quitting cigarettes and vaping, mostly because that means that they would actually have to admit that they were using. So we don't actually ask how many students are using tobacco products, because that information is being gathered, by larger organizations anyways. Student quote below, "I'm inspired to make changes in my life to reduce my risk." That's our hope. We want to give them information, and we hope that we have empowered them to make changes, make healthier changes. This is the point in their life where they're starting to develop these habits and make decisions for themselves. So hopefully we have made an impact on their decision making. How to get involved. This is for the teenagers. Cancer Pathways wants to stay connected. We don't necessarily want to just be kind of a one-stop shop. We will be, but there are a lot of opportunities if teenagers want to stay connected with us. One of the most popular ones is our writing contest. It is amazing. We have over hundreds and hundreds of essays every single year. We just finished our contest reception, I think a little over a month ago. So it is nationwide. We pick about 10 winners a year. I would strongly encourage you guys to check out that portion of our website. We haven't posted our new essay winners this year, but you can still see last year's winners. If you want to read about how teenagers really are being impacted, you can read their essays. Very powerful, very heartfelt. We also have our guitar program for children. This is available in certain areas. We've partnered with Rulon International. They make wooden guitars for us. And then any schools that participate in our program, we leave a guitar behind and they get to decorate it however they see fit. I think a lot of the teens really enjoy doing that. We send some pretty spectacular guitars, and then at the end of the school year, we'll take those to local hospitals and donate those to children that are actually going through cancer. So this is kind of a full circle opportunity for the teenagers. Teen Ambassador Program, we've been recruiting that the last school year. We plan on implementing that this school year. Opportunity for those students that want to be leaders in their school, that want to become a cancer advocate in their school. Cancer Pathways will kind of guide them, train them, and be their mentor. becoming a volunteer. Probably one of our most popular opportunities is with our summer camp, Camp Sparkle. That is Washington based. However, this year is virtual. So we've been able to offer volunteer opportunities like Pen Pals for students nationwide. So I think we probably will continue to do that. And then let's see, last but not least, Someone You Love. That is a documentary that follows the lives of 5 women that have been impacted by HPV-related cancers. We've seen this shown kind of like a movie and popcorn opportunity in the classroom, maybe even after school, maybe even with parents, a lot of different formats or options to have that at your school or host that at your school. But we would love to be able to help provide that opportunity too. So I think that might be it. I want to save time for questions. I think we have about 10 more minutes. Again, this is if your school community is ever impacted by a personal diagnosis, we would love to be there for you guys. We would love to help walk you through that. The statement at the end is just kind of sharing that, you know, one role or one thing the school can do is educate their students about cancer, because they're seeing the more knowledge and the more information that students have about cancer is going to increase their understanding, their compassion towards others. I think most students want to be supportive but don't necessarily know how to do that. So we would love to help educate your school and your community and your teens. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see what we have in the chat box and possibly open up some questions and discussions. I'll give you guys a second in case you're being shy, but I definitely have questions for you all.
I would be curious how many, in Washington State, how many districts, and then of those districts, how many schools like are using this program currently?
We are very heavy Washington right now. That's where we originated, and it just continues. We barely even market in Washington State anymore because it's just spreading by word of mouth. We have maps of what counties that we're located in that I'd be happy to share with you. And we definitely have a list of all districts and schools that were in Washington State. If you tell me who
interested
you are,
in that list. Sorry, I would be happy to get that list also.
Yeah, because since I'm working with the state government, we're always being asked like, hey, what are some ideas for health curriculum? And so if I can say, here's an option and these districts around you are using it, check in with them and see what their thoughts are about it. It might be helpful for them.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I think since we've implemented the online, you know, we've hit a lot of Eastern Washington over the last few years as well. Right now, we're very heavy in, I think, King County, Pierce, Thurston, Snohomish. Maybe you can add to that, but I know we're, I think typically we see about 10,000 students a year. About 8,000 of those this current year from Washington State.
And that's mostly high school.
Middle school and high school. We started only going into a high school classroom, but we quickly saw that it was very relevant for middle school students as well, and aligned well with that classroom. We've been approached by going, you know, elementary and primary. We don't have that curriculum yet, but I would see it happening in the future.
But in the modules online, are they like, this is a middle school module, this is a high school, like to learning outcomes in your middle school and then learning outcomes in your high school?
Yeah, on the online, we only have one course that is available for middle and high school. In the in-person, there is a little bit of differences between our middle school and high school presentation. And then the lesson plans are specified, you know, what age group and what grade level. And I don't even think that I've mentioned, but probably also important, we are free. There is no cost to use our program. That's our mission, is to be able to provide services and education to our communities at no cost. So we're grant funded, and we have fundraising events that help support our education program. And we've been able to maintain that basically since 2005. We get a lot of support. Has anybody, does anybody know what their fall is going to look like yet?
The jury's still out. Nobody knows.
I don't think so either. I was just, maybe somebody knew by now, but I didn't think so.
I think Washington State will be offering districts a buffet of options, if you will, from what looks like now and then going into school slowly, go slow migration, to probably a hybrid model. And so I imagine most high schools will probably be in a hybrid model in the fall. And so this may work well as I can really see teacher meets with half a class for maybe the whole class period, and then this module could reinforce that health or CTE lesson, possibly.
Yeah.
And then again, the challenge is in Washington State, and the challenge is in probably South Carolina and Georgia. Because I was born in Atlanta and I went to Georgia Tech and University of Georgia, so I know the area very well, is that you have very urban areas and very rural areas, and some of the rural areas have very poor Wi-Fi access. And so it's difficult to get online modules or just do schools have computers, Chromebooks, etc.
Yeah.
For students to use.
And that's always been a concern, you know, who's going to have access to our online material. Yeah. And I think that's probably the hesitation with a lot of schools, and they're rolling out in the fall to make sure all students have access to their curriculum. And, you know, we have, and that might be something we can look at too. A lot of our online materials are printable as well. If they're not able to access, we have a lot of information that could be printed and shared that way too. We're also working on translating our material into Spanish this coming school year. Yeah.
Oh, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. That is on.
Especially if that's like if that's send home packets.
If
it was in Spanish, that would probably be very helpful.
Cool. Do any of you foresee, or are there any barriers for teachers to access online materials? Anything that we should be aware of when presenting this, or would make it easier for teachers to access and share with their students?
Maybe, I haven't looked up your materials, but maybe a 2 to 4 minute video on what this is and how to do it, but keep it short. Like, because people's attention spans my attention span is like how long is a song tops sometimes. So I think having something that shows them what to do, how to sign up, and then options for like, here's online, here's printable materials, you know, those kind of things would be helpful, because often we're just throwing materials at teachers and curriculum instructors in schools without giving them any professional development in how to use these materials. So I think if you had a short YouTube or some video how to access materials and all that. I think that would be helpful for educators.
Awesome feedback. Thank you. Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We have 1 minute. If there's not any other questions, I will send a post survey to all the participants shortly. Thank you very much in advance for filling those out. If you have any lingering questions or any type of follow-up, I can send out when I send out the survey, I'll include our participants by state, and hopefully that will be helpful for some of you to see where what schools and what counties we're in currently. And it also kind of shows where we would like to be, where we're reaching out to next. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And again, my email is jana@cancerpathways.org if you have any other questions. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again for joining.